Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the Soul Seekers podcast, where we believe that hunting has the power to transform lives through primal adventure as we share our mission of mentorship is conservation. To learn more about everything we do, check out our show on Carbon TV or go to soulseekersnation.com. Freedom on, everybody, and stay soulful. Do you want to become a better shooter, reduce flinch, protect your ears, and just overall enjoy shooting your gun that much more? Then there's no better way to do that than by adding a suppressor to the end of your barrel. Be sure to check out Huxwrx Safety Co, as they are a leader in the suppressor world with their OSS Flow-Through Technology, virtually eliminating blowback and toxic gas that can affect weapon system performance and shooter health. To find out more about Huxwrx, go to huxwrx.com. That's huxwrx.com, and go get yourself a suppressor for your upcoming hunts. This podcast is also proudly brought to you by onX Hunt. When I first got into hunting, I kept hearing all about public land and different access and how to find different locations to hunt. I was like, well, how are people even identifying all this stuff? Well, sure enough, I came across the #1 hunting GPS app, and that is onX Hunt. If you guys want to get better at hunting and go deeper into your scouting, onX Hunt is the #1 GPS app for that. Join the millions of hunters who trust onX Hunt to find more game, discover new access, and hunt smarter. It was a game changer for me, and I know it's going to be a game changer for you if you've never used it. If you have used it, you know the power that it holds. Guys, I really hope you enjoy this episode. If you want to know more about onX, go to onxmaps.com/hunt. And check out their app. Be blessed, freedom on, and stay soulful. All right, guys. Well, welcome back to another episode of the Soul Seekers podcast. I'm your host, Johnny Mack, and I am live from the Western Hunting and Conservation Expo in Salt Lake City, here put on by the Mule Deer Foundation, and this is something else. I'm sitting in the MTN TOUGH Fitness Lab booth, and we're talking with Zach Hanson of the Outfitter.Guide, and he's also the author of Turning Feral. It's an awesome book, just came out. Zach, how long ago did your book hit the market?
October, so only a few months, so it's pretty new to the market.
Yeah, so Zach hit my radar when I started to see him popping up on Facebook, and his mustache is unforgettable. Plus, the cover of his book really left an impact. It hooked me. And I was like, I need to know more about Zach and his story of turning feral, because I feel like that's what we all need in this life.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, for sure. I mean, that's the journey I think many people are on right now, is getting a little bit of a retaste of what life used to be like.
Yeah.
And turning a little more feral.
What is the definition of feral for you?
Feral for me is, or has been, learning the hard way. Feral in a lot of instances could just be going out in the woods, being a mountain man, if you had those skills. For me, I'm an adult onset hunter, just like yourself. I didn't get into any of this until my 30s. So my journey of going feral has just been moving out to the middle of nowhere and learning every single lesson 6 times over the hard way.
Wow. We're going to talk all about that here shortly. Just real quick, it takes a lot of courage to start something brand new.
Oh, yeah.
And I feel like, I'm a firm believer that courage is a first known trait of mankind.
Mm-hmm.
Not everyone has it. Well, let me take that back. Everyone has it. Not everyone flexes it.
That's true.
And you got to strengthen it, use it or lose it type thing, right? Yep. And so in order for people to have courage and to try new things, like you put yourself out there.
Mm-hmm.
But there's no risk without reward.
That is true.
Or no reward without risk. Yeah.
One of those ways, yeah.
There you go.
I think people know what you're saying.
And the whole thing is, like, at some point, and this is why this is a Soul Seekers podcast, our soul craves more than what we get day in and day out.
Especially in the corporate sphere that a lot of us either have been bred into or are still living.
Yeah.
And that's the life I was living.
Yeah.
And my soul was seeking way more.
All right. So, brother, what's your history? What's your background? I haven't even read this book, by the way, peeps. I've just I've seen it and I've wanted to get into it. Super excited. But Zach, what is your history, man? What's the origin story?
It's pretty eclectic. So I grew up in the Southeast. So I grew up around hunting, or hunting was always on the periphery. It was just never something that my close friends were into and my family wasn't into.
Yeah.
So I grew up around hunters, but never had the opportunity or never took the opportunity to go hunt, which, hindsight being what it is, regret it. However, I grew up Southeast, went to college, followed the path that my parents had set out for me. It's like, you need to go get a degree, do this thing, and I did it all. I followed the path and ended up getting a job, worked overseas for a while, came back here, and I'm actually am and still a professional in the artificial intelligence industry. So I was one of the people who started to build out Infinite Scroll, which again, lots of guilt surrounding this, like functionality, algorithms that would draw eyeballs for ad monetization.
Interesting.
Yeah, so that's my
What do you think of
background.
like this Chat GPT and stuff like that?
I mean, Chat GPT is very interesting, but I don't think that's a separate podcast. Yeah.
There we go.
Yeah, that's a separate podcast. It's very interesting. There's some really cool use cases. Is it going to be the linchpin that kicks us over into the robots taking over and putting collars around our necks? Probably not. But still cool stuff. But regardless, I went down this path. I was married. My ex-wife and I did not have kids. My ex-wife was an FBI special agent. We had the big home, the white picket fence, the cars, the yearly vacations to exotic places, and that was just our life. And that whole time talking about souls, I felt so unfulfilled. I was constantly having to, how do I put this? I was constantly having to make artificial strife so I could feel something. So that was the ultra marathons. Got into that.
Yeah.
I've done wrestling and jiu-jitsu since I was 15. So I was competing all the time. My ex-wife was a jiu-jitsu world champion, so we were just traveling all over the world doing jiu-jitsu.
Wow.
And just non-stop. And it got to this point, and I've talked about this before on some other podcasts, is the real tipping point for me even getting into hunting was because we were so focused on athletics, my ex-wife and I, that we finally were at the point where we were counting all our macros, doing anything to get an edge, even though, like, my ex-wife was good. I was and am still very much an amateur in everything I do. But focusing on nutrition.
Yeah.
And then that kind of started leading into, hey, what is this whole idea about wild game, things like that?
Right.
And that's what got me hunt curious in the first place. And then
dude, so many questions to go off of. So I want to make sure like we hit these tangents, but also stay on track. So I've always Fight Club.
Yep.
Are you familiar with
Chuck
the movie? Yeah.
I don't know how to pronounce his last name. Chuck Palahniuk. Whoever the writer is. But yes.
The concept of that is that people are so blah with their life that they have to do something to feel alive.
Oh, yeah.
And so, it started off with like these drugs to all of a sudden hit me. Hit me. Like, let's go. Like, I really lived for the first time. And that's one of the things that I truly believe is lost in society. We've become soft, complacent. You were searching for other things to stimulate you.
Oh, yeah.
Rather than like a cutter would cut themselves to feel something.
Yep.
That's not healthy.
No, it's not. And even though it was being filled with healthy things per se, athletics, it's not like the drugs or the cutting, but it was the same thing.
Yeah.
It was to fill a void. And what it really, after a lot of reflection, was I had no real consequences for anything I did in my life. Meaning, like, if I went to a jiu-jitsu tournament, worst thing was going to happen to me is I get choked out. If I went on an ultra run, worst thing, I roll my ankle. I was never really presented with something dire or a real consequence for my actions, though I was pushing those bounds. So then when I did go all in to turn feral, like, that's when I actually had consequences for actions. Like, I moved out to the middle of nowhere. I had to actually chop wood for fire or
you didn't
freeze.
have heat.
Yeah. I had to hunt food because I lived 80 miles down a dirt road that was often avalanched in. And if I didn't hunt food, I wouldn't have food.
So was your turning feral a result of where you lived, or was your turning feral was moving a part of your journey?
It was a part of the journey because what happened, and I talk about it a little bit in the book, there was really kind of a nexus event in my life. So I started to get hunt curious. I'd bought a bow, tried to learn to shoot in my backyard.
The term hunt curious makes me giggle because I used to teach. I was a physical education teacher.
Yep.
I sorry to interrupt you real quick.
No,
but,
I love it.
I can't stand it, but the term like sexuality in today is like bi-curious or this curious.
Yep.
So it's like I was hunt curious. I'm like,
hey man, I came out of the closet too, man. Totally out. I am not hunt curious anymore. I am hunt positive.
Oh, there you go. Yeah.
But no, I was definitely on that train. But nonetheless, regressing back to that, I had this event in my life. So I had been pursuing hunting a little bit. I had bought a bow that was a little too short for me from a buddy, hucking arrows in my neighbor's backyard trying to learn to shoot it. Went on 2 hunts unsuccessfully with a little guy like doing pig hunting, things like that. And then I got an unexpected divorce laid in my lap. And it was just completely out of the blue for me. And I was at this crossroads where I'd already been thinking about hunting, wanting to live something more meaningful. I'd been on a few hunts and felt connected in the woods more than I'd ever been anywhere else, in church, on a mat. It was just the most surreal thing to me. So I took that opportunity and I said, I'm going north. So I literally got in my car, packed my stuff. Thankfully, my ex-wife and I didn't have kids.
Where'd you live at the time?
Louisiana.
Wow.
Yeah, I was a coon ass.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you packed your car and you went where?
Boise. So it was a interesting little event. So my ex-wife and I would always do the yearly vacation somewhere exotic. The year prior to us getting divorced, we had actually thought about, hey, why don't we go somewhere in the States? And somehow we landed on Idaho, Stanley, Idaho. So we flew into Boise. We drove up Highway 21. I saw a bald eagle chasing a Canadian goose. Fucking awesome. That was cool, just on the river.
Yeah.
I saw elk. I saw mule deer. I saw pronghorn. I saw all these animals, and we saw a wolf, all in like a 3-day weekend trip.
Sweet.
And I was enamored because I'd already started to hunt some, and I told my ex-wife, I'm like, we are moving here. And she goes, yeah, maybe 20 years when I retire from the agency, all that. And I'm like, no. I feel it like pulling on my soul. Like, this is where I need to be. And then 3 months later, their divorce happened, and I'm like, well, I'm going there. So I pointed my car to Boise, got an apartment for a few months, and looked at properties all around until I ended up in a little town in Idaho, central Idaho, called Atlanta. And 35 people live there year-round, no grocery store, no gas station, one way in, one way out. Again, rock slides, avalanche, the whole lot. And, it's just middle of nowhere. Our backyard opens up to 3,000 acres of national forest land.
Sweet.
I can run my trap line right out there. Man, that was the real, true turning feral moment for me, but there was a lot of build-up to get there.
So, and a lot of listeners are going to be like, okay, we understand this turning feral, but that's scary.
Oh, yeah.
That leap of faith, that first, this is what I want, and I'm going to get it.
Yep.
Like, what was going through your head? Like, what emotions were you feeling? Can you even put words to it, or is it like just...
All of them, I guess. There was clearly, it's just like a hunt to me. When you get an animal, most people see the grip and grin photos, right? But people don't understand the ups, the downs, the solemnness you feel when you take an animal's life, and then the excitement when you get up to it and realize you did what you've been training for, and you might be able to eat it, do whatever. But it was the same gamut of emotions, and it was just excitement, fear, the unknown, because I had no idea what I was doing. And one of the things I talk about in the book is I got this house, cabin, middle of nowhere, wood burning stoves.
What's up, Soul Seekers Nation? Thank you so much for listening to this podcast. I really appreciate it. As a reward, I have some discount codes for you to use if you are in the market for a brand new hunting pack. Go check out initialascent.com and Initial Ascent packs. They are made in America. Their one-piece carbon frame is an absolute game changer. We run their packs. We love them. And you can save 5% at checkout by using the code SOULSEEKERS. That's all one word. Also, for those of you who are archery hunters and you are tired of shooting at dots on a target, check out deadnutsoutdoors.com for their lifelike 2D archery targets. You can save 20% on all of their products by using the code SOULSEEKERS at checkout. Once again, the code is SOULSEEKERS, all one word. Go check out initialascent.com and Dead Nuts Outdoors. Enjoy the podcast.
The first few nights I was there, and again, this wintertime, averages -14. I was trying to light a fire in my wood-burning stove.
Yeah.
It'd light up, give off a little bit of heat, and then die. Light it again, die. Light it and die. What I didn't realize in my amateur off-grid lifestyle is that the flue needs to be open because fire needs oxygen.
Yes.
So I was sitting there just jackhammering in the floor, freezing my ass off for 3 nights until I finally tucked tail and walked to my nearest neighbor a half a mile away and said, hey, can you help me with my wood-burning stove? And, of course, they come over, flip the thing for the flue to be open, laugh a little bit, and be like, boy, you're in over your head. I'm like, yeah, a little bit.
Yeah.
But then it grew. Then I started to get more courage to ask and have these questions and, confront people and what am I doing?
Yeah.
And then that's been my MO, and that's part of the book, too, is the honesty. It's okay to say, I don't know what the hell I'm doing.
So coming from an educator perspective, we were always told in college, like, especially because being a health teacher and we're teaching sex ed and different stuff, it's like, there are times in life where you always need to pretend like you know what you're doing.
Yep, of course.
And then there are times in your life where it's best to be honest. So saying to a student who asks a question that you don't know the answer to and saying, I don't know that answer. That's a really good question.
Yep.
I'm going to go find it out, and I'll come back and tell you.
Yep.
And I believe the humility of that and the vulnerability of that is a character trait that a lot of people don't access very often.
Oh, yeah. It's
because it's ego-driven, right? It's like we got to make sure we look good for outside forces.
100%. And thankfully, that was beaten out of me, literally, because I was a wrestler. Okay. This is a funny story. I mean, I say beaten out of me literally, but, humility and ego go hand in hand. You got to tamp down the ego if you want to be able to ask these questions and learn and not be tied to your own image or anything like that. But in high school, again, taking a leap of faith, I had been a swimmer. I was like, you know what? I'm going to go out for the wrestling team. I knew some friends who were wrestlers. They seemed like tough dudes. I'm like, I want to be a tough dude. I'm going to go wrestle. So I get on the wrestling team. I start learning a little bit of wrestling. My first match ever. So I'm a sophomore in high school. We're going to our rival high school. They're state champions, just crushing it. And I was 135 pounds, and I was on the JV team. Our 135-pound varsity wrestler got sick. So who gets to step up on his first wrestling match ever to the varsity team? So first off, my family's there, my sister, my mom and dad, first wrestling match. People in the crowd. It's cold gym. I'm in a little singlet. That gives you any idea.
Oh, yeah.
And I walk up to this sign-in sheet to sign in for the match. I'm going against a state champion senior. I sign in, and I turn to go to the mat to go shake this kid's hand. In my singlet, it's cold. I have this stupid headgear because I haven't been wrestling that my mom bought me at Dick's Sporting Goods. I walk to get on the mat in this cold gym in a singlet, and I trip over the mat, and I fall flat on my face and break my nose. So I get blood time right before the match even starts. So I'm getting a tampon shoved up my nose before I go out and get mercy killed by the state champion in 5 seconds in front of my parents and God and everybody. And I put that as a pivotal moment in my life of where ego and humility, I gained humility and my ego just died.
Yeah.
At that point, you have to think okay, this is funny at this point.
Yeah.
And not thinking too much of yourself and just giving into the whole idea of no one knows anything.
That's the thing. No one really knows anything. I always say on the podcast, everyone has opinions. Very few people have perspectives, and perspectives come with experiences.
Right.
When you experience something, all of a sudden it's like, oh, okay. Why do we not touch the stove? Because the stove's hot and it will burn you.
Yep.
But if we're kids like, hey, don't touch the stove, it's like, oh, that's your opinion, man. Big Lebowski style.
100%.
But yeah. So did you ever, but that's a phenomenal story. So how long did the match last, by the way?
Less than 5 seconds, I think. I think the guy did a death touch on me and I just folded over.
Just
and,
limp fish and
pretty much. That's what it felt like at least.
So your dad didn't hunt?
Nope.
Mom didn't hunt?
Mom didn't hunt.
Aunts and uncles?
I had an uncle. So, it was on the periphery again, but none of them that were, hey, I want to take you out.
But no one said, hey, let me teach you.
No, not a single one.
That's the thing that really blows my mind.
Yeah.
When hunting, because here we are at the Western Hunt Expo. There's this many people that support hunting, but when it comes to being an encourager, filling someone with courage.
Yeah.
That is what an encourager does. It fills someone with courage.
Yep.
That first known trait. To take that step of hey, you can do this.
Yeah.
Let me teach you how, or let me guide you. And
yeah.
It's missing.
It is, 100%. And for me, I can't say that I didn't have any help. Because when I was an adult in my 30s, learning to hunt, my ex-wife's family did hunt. They never invited me to go hunt until I got, again, hunt curious. And then at that point, my ex-father-in-law's lights went off. He's like, hey, you should come hunt with me. And for whatever reason, I had my ego in the way for that too, because I didn't want to embarrass him or embarrass myself in front of my father-in-law.
Right.
And it took a little while for me to get to the point where I was like, I'm in.
Yeah.
And man, when I did, he was like a master class because it was whitetail hunting in Tennessee. And those guys, they're planting clover fields. They've got their tree stands and they have shooting lanes cut. They're out there working on their leases all year long. And that was the first indication to me that this was a bit of a science and not just an art, and which was cool. And that was actually where I harvested my first deer in a deer stand in Tennessee. So I had a little bit of help once I kind of got over that hump. But then for me, especially when I moved out west to Idaho, I was stuck going like this. I knew I wanted to hunt elk. I didn't know how to bugle. I didn't know how to even get in on elk. Like, I could see elk. I don't know what you do.
Right.
So then I thankfully, I had the means at the time, just from my career, to be able to go with an outfitter and a guide. So that was kind of my own personal way to beat down the learning curve. But that's an expensive thing that's not available to everybody.
Well, let me tell you this, and I actually have a perspective on this, is so often in life, if people want to learn something, they'll invest in something to teach them.
Yep.
I want to learn how to be a teacher. I'm going to go to college to be a teacher, or whatever your AI skill set was. What did you have to? You had to spend your own money.
Correct.
To go in to do that. Yet people will not spend money on themselves that is going to make them a better human.
Yep.
And a better skill set to provide for their humanity.
Yep.
And it blows my mind. And so not every outfitter is like the best outfitter, but if you take $3,000, depending on what animal it is or whatever, and say, I'm going to treat this like a college course, and I'm going to pay this outfitter, and I'm going to ask every single question possible, and I'm going to drop the ego and say, if I'm annoying, I'm sorry, but I'm using you as a experienced professional in your field.
You just described my first guided hunt.
There you go. To teach me.
Yeah.
And because I'm paying for this course.
Yep.
And that's what it is. And then when people start to look at it that way, all of a sudden it's like, okay, I can justify spending that much money.
Yeah. It's like a master class. And it was funny, like the first one I went on, I told my parents, I'm new to hunting.
Yeah.
They're like, you're going to spend what to go do what?
Yes.
Again, they don't have the understanding of what hunting was in the first place or what it meant to me or what I was trying to do from this. But I've talked to people who have been hunting their whole lives, and sometimes we'll go hunting. They're like, how did you, not necessarily get so good at hunting, but how did you get so far ahead when you started in your 30s?
Yes.
And it's like, again, it's like you invest in it.
Yeah.
And you invest in hunting. And I did guided hunts for a while, and now I do mostly DIY, but I wouldn't have been able to do that, or it would have been a much longer path to doing a DIY hunt without that.
Right. It's not, and this is the thing about hunting, which is so fascinating. It's so multifaceted that it's not just about the animal, but it is.
Yeah.
But it's about the skill set, but it's not. And it's about all these different things where it's like, oh, you always learn something.
Yep.
And it blows me away. That's why I love having conversations with people like you, because you understand it.
Yeah.
So how old are you now?
35.
Oh, man, you're so old.
And
when did you take your hunter safety course?
30.
Dude, I took my hunter safety at 30 also.
Yeah.
I'm 38 now.
All right.
But for me, I also didn't have any of that support. And so I took to YouTube, I took to blogs, I took to different things.
But that's also awesome. And that's one of the things, I'm a YouTube baby. Like in the book, I talk about that first deer that I ended up having to gut because the processor was closed on a Sunday in Tennessee.
Yeah.
I had an iPhone up between this deer's rigor mortis legs trying to figure out how to gut it and hoping I could find one that didn't say start at the butthole. But everyone did.
Right, yeah.
And learned the hard way.
Right.
But there's such a great plethora of information. So not to say that that's a replacement for mentorship or a replacement for people being hands-on, but it is a good augment.
It is a place to start.
Yeah.
I just got done giving a black bear hunting 101 seminar for spot and stock right before we started recording this podcast. And one of the things that I talk about when it comes to scouting, because boots on the ground is the best.
Yep.
You're never going to be able to replicate going out and experiencing what the terrain looks like and all this stuff. But I was a backpacker, and I used to work at REI for a long time prior to becoming a hunter. And so in the state of Washington, they have this thing called Washington Trails Association, and they're hiking reports. And so I was a high school football coach, and football we started in like August 16th. First couple weeks of August, I was a school teacher also, so I had off. Those were always dedicated to me backpacking.
Nice.
Well, so I was used to reading these trail reports. And before I was a hunter, I would read these trail reports and I'd view them only in a specific fashion. When I started to being a hunter and I'd go back to those trail reports, dude, hikers give you so much scouting information that you don't even realize.
Oh, yeah.
They're like, the berries are in. I saw a covey of grouse. The bear hunters that were there were definitely leave no trace principles, so the trash there must have come from hikers. And I'm like, okay, putting all this together, blah, bear hunters, berries, grouse. Oh, now I get to have a place to. And I was using the Washington Trails Association website and like an almanac, because you could go back if my hunt's August 15th, and like, okay, well, what trail report is from August 15th, year to year to year? Is it showing berries? And
You're talking like a data scientist, man.
Dude, but it's this outside obscure info that people have access to, but they don't know, right? And so just giving that little bit of this is what an area that holds animals looks like. Take this and replicate it, and you'll start finding animals.
Yeah, and I agree. And I think what's interesting when you talk about onset hunters, like adult onset hunters like you and I too, I think bringing a different lens of beating down that learning curve, then you start to think about things you've done in the past, like looking at these trail reports, then getting to couple that with a little bit of information you're getting as you're learning about bear hunting.
Right.
And then build out this unique perspective that I think people who might have been hunting their whole lives might not even have.
Mm-hmm.
And then you get to share that.
Right.
And, people might look at you or look at me and be like, wow, well, you haven't been hunting your whole life, so how do you know anything? It's like, well, I don't,
I don't know everything.
Right.
That's a great question, but I'll find an answer.
Exactly.
And I'll get back to you.
And I'm pretty damn good at finding answers.
Yeah.
And wanting to, and having the hunger and drive to find these answers.
What you said right there, wanting to.
Yeah.
Want. So I spent a lot of time investing into my own humanity. I went to emotional intelligence leadership training down in California. Spent thousands of dollars. Like, it was multiple weekends of having to pay for hotel, flights. The course itself was like $4,000 to $5,000. And this goes back to investing in yourself.
Yep.
Well, how much is your life worth?
Yep.
It's worth a lot, I'll tell you that. And so through this process, everything came back to, what do you want? Don't worry about the how. Well, how do I hunt? Don't worry about the how. If you want to hunt bad enough, or if you want to learn how to find animals, or you want a skill set, as long as that want is bad enough or big enough or strong enough, you're going to get the answer.
Well, it's the same. I talk to people all the time. They're like, how'd you write a book? I want to write a book. I've had this book in my head. I'm like, well, if you really wanted to write a book,
you'd write the book.
You write the book. It's not that hard. You put words on paper,
Yeah.
and then you let somebody else go through and tell you how much it sucks, and then they polish the turd, and maybe something good comes out the other end, but similar.
I'm sitting on a turd currently, not in my pants. I wrote a book actually at the beginning of this journey as well that I haven't released yet because I felt like my story wasn't complete.
Your story's never complete, my friend. Get it out. There's called volumes.
I know. I'll tell you this though, but that's the thing. It's like, oh, I want to write a book. Well, you don't really want to write a book. You just like the concept of writing a book because maybe it's ego driven and it's, hey, look what I did and look at
100%.
what I accomplished, and rather than, what is the purpose of your book?
I want to educate people and let them know that if you're an adult onset hunter or you're someone who's hunt curious,
the way your eyes go, hunt curious,
For people who can't see, I have very seductive eyes when I say that. I want people to know that it's going to be dirty. It's going to be gory.
Yeah.
It's going to suck.
Yeah.
But you're going to gain so much from it, and that it's okay to not know, and it's okay to ask, and it's okay to be wrong and embarrass yourself. And you have to learn the hard way.
Yeah.
You talk to any lifelong hunter and you ask them stories from when they were 12 to 18 years old, they're going to have stories of winging a deer. They're going to have stories of, wanton waste.
Mm-hmm.
They're going to have stories of all this stuff that they made and regret and can laugh about it because it was so long ago for them. But if you start as an adult, you're going to have maybe fewer because you can educate yourself a little better maybe. Mm-hmm. You're going to have those, though. You're going to have those moral bending moments when you're in a sport that's about death.
Dude. Legality versus morality.
100%.
Interesting topic in the hunting world.
It is.
I totally agree with you. So you got this place in Idaho.
Yep.
You started hunting.
Mm-hmm.
Trapping is a whole nother realm of outdoorsmen.
Oh yeah. If
you can trap, you're at the top of the peak.
I will say, if you want to truly beat down the hunting learning curve, start to trap.
Yeah.
I mean, it's the most difficult thing I've ever experienced, and it's one of the ironically misconceived sports because many people think, oh, you just throw a trap on the ground, animal steps in it, that's so unsportsmanlike. But the way I like to think about it is if you have a 6-inch by 6-inch square foothold trap,
Yeah.
I think for coyotes, bobcats,
Yeah.
whatever, you're placing that, and like at least where I trap, 3,000 acres of public land. So you're trying to attract and retain and get a canine, a very smart canine, to ultimately step in a 6-inch by 6-inch square spot and be held there.
Yeah.
It's so hard. I've been embarrassed by more dogs, coyotes, foxes, wolves in my life than anything else. By the way, we have wild turkeys running around.
Dude, yeah. Welcome to recording at the expo. No, 100%. So I just had Byron South on my podcast. His episode actually releases this coming Monday.
Rock on.
So do you know who Byron South is?
I've heard the name.
You've heard the name.
Yep.
He's old school. Dude who is willing to share as much info as possible. I had him on. I stopped the episode at 1 hour because I was like, this could be a very long episode, but I want to make sure I honor his time, and I want to make sure I hammer certain topics completely. He's talking about, he's like, you said 6-inch. He was like a 4-inch, 3-inch, whatever it is. How do you get an animal out of this expanse
to step there?
To step in a little tiny spot the size of the round of a Coke bottle.
Yep.
And
it's hard. And that's the thing, like when you can figure out and learn to pattern animals, if you want to learn to pattern animals, whether it's water trapping, beaver, otter, coyote, wolf, whatever, it takes study, it takes scouting, it takes early mornings. And if you want to be ethical about it, like I go check my traps every day. So you're spending gas money, snowmobile money, whatever the case may be. And then what's ironic, and I talk about this in the book, and you'll have to introduce you to the president of the Idaho Trappers Association. But if you look at the index real quick, you can look at flip to, let's see.
Oh my gosh, I just put a tear.
Let's see.
One of it, trapping.
Go to, I think, wolf.
Okay.
But regardless, there's a picture in here of the Idaho Trappers Association president, Rusty Kramer, great guy. But ultimately, you end up catching non-target animals. And I think that's what, I probably the wrong chapter, but there's one of him releasing a mountain lion.
Oh, wow.
And I've got a video, too. I'll show you. But you can get non-target animals, and to be an ethical hunter, there are times where you might catch a black bear in a wolf trap, or you might catch a mountain lion in a wolf trap. You can't shoot those animals. You have to release them.
So how do you get them out without...
101 Dalmatians, like the old catch pole.
Yeah, the neck.
Yeah, that's what you're doing, man.
Wow.
So you're talking about some real blue-collar shit when you are a person who is having to check your trap lines before work. And so you might have to release 2 mountain lions and a black bear before you punch in for your day job at 9 o'clock, right? So, it's just this amount of work. But then you get to experience and get close to these animals, too.
Yeah.
Like when you're releasing a mountain lion, you get really intimate on their mannerisms, how they act, how they don't act, because you're not putting them out. Unless you call fish and game, but where I live, that's a 5-hour drive.
Right.
So, yeah.
Wild. Okay, so you're 35.
Yep.
Hunter safety at 30.
Yep.
You moved to Idaho at what age?
Same.
At 30.
Yep.
At what point did you feel like, okay, I think I got a handle on this? Not that I know what I'm doing.
Yeah.
But like I got enough of a foundation.
Probably year 3.
Yeah.
It took 2 years, and it depends on the animal. And I talk about it in the book. Like, I've never taken an animal with a rifle. I've just been exclusively bow hunting. Not because I'm against rifle hunting. I just suck at it, and I want to dedicate time to unsuck myself.
Yeah.
That also sounds weird.
No, I like that. Unsucking.
But,
Book 2, Turning Feral, the unsucking part.
But different animals. So, like, for elk, it took a couple years of going with with an outfitter on a guided hunt. Now I actually know how to bugle. I went out this last year and was working my own spots, doing DIY. Same with antelope. So different speeds. Trapping took a lot longer to get comfortable. Not so much from getting steel on the ground, but from feeling like I could actually get an animal to step in that 4-inch square spot. And then starting to have it with some consistency.
This goes into the trapping and the hunting aspect. Is like when I first started hunting, I assumed that there was an animal behind every tree out in the woods. It's not like that.
Oh.
People, like, you can go a long time without ever seeing an animal when you're hunting. And
Yep.
people are like, well, I see deer all the time. Or I see, it's like, yeah, maybe in a farmer's field or whatever. But like when you're actually in search of them, hard to find.
Oh yeah, once you get a tag in your pocket, they disappear. Like this 2 weeks ago, I was in Arizona doing a mule deer and javelina hunt in Unit 20C outside of Congress, Arizona. My goodness, we glassed 8 hours a day, and over a 7-day hunt, we saw 4 bucks. It was antler only. We were able to get in on 2, and we didn't get a shot on either of them because does busted us as always, just belly crawling in with our bows.
Yeah.
But yeah, 7 days, saw 4 bucks.
Wow.
And an entire expanse, constantly moving too, getting vantage points, tons of countries, just sparse in some areas.
So in my hunting journey, I got to a point where, I go out hunt, come back. Wife's like, hey, get anything? No. See anything? No. To a point where you start to see animals, and it's like, okay, maybe I'm starting to get it. And then there's this point where I see my target animal every time I'm going out, and that was the point where, without like egotistically saying that, it's like, oh, I'm a hunter now.
Right.
Like I know how to find the animals.
Yeah.
And that was like
that's a cool moment.
I reached the top, kind of.
Yeah.
Whether or not you can make the shot or they blow out, or like, for example, if you're like 3-point only unit for mule deer and you're only seeing forkies,
yep,
you're still seeing them.
Yeah. And that's the thing. Like, for me, is the coolest thing is animal patterns. I mean, I'm sure I'm a dork in some instance. I work in artificial intelligence, for Christ's sake, but the ability to, like you said, when you can go and say, I want to go see elk, and you can know elevation, you know where they're going to be at, you know their herd patterns, whatever the case may be, that's pretty dang cool, whether you harvest an animal or not.
Yeah.
And yeah, I'd say that was year 3 for me. By the time, again, of full in, lots of hunting, lots of trapping, like a lot of experience condensed in a very short time frame before I was like, yeah, I could probably go find that animal.
Yeah. Ah, man. So what's your target animal? What do you love? Because every hunter, beaver.
I'm a beaver man.
Yes.
My wife's not here, so I can't make too many jokes. But but in all reality, I love water trapping. It was the weirdest thing for me when I got up there because I thought I'd target wolves. I love wolf trapping. I love doing a lot of things. I love elk hunting, of course. Like, there's nothing cooler than bugling in September and getting an animal to call back to you. But beaver trapping is the freaking coolest thing ever. I don't know why it is. I think it has a little bit to do that I grew up and I loved mountain man stories, even though I wasn't out hunting and doing this stuff. And just coming out west for me being a redemptive thing, a therapeutic thing for me, coming out of a divorce, trying to find my own soul. Getting in the water when it's -14 snowing, trying to bust through ice to set a beaver trap, for these beaver that have been flooding out your road too. It's awesome. And then when you actually connect, because beaver are smart as well, it's amazing. And then you eat it, and then you skin it, and then you have this cool pelt to give to your daughter. Oh, it's just full circle. Beaver's the coolest.
Beaver tastes good.
Oh, it's amazing. We make shout out to Meat Eater. We just followed a cookbook recipe from there, just like pulled barbecue beaver sandwiches.
Do you treat it just like any other wild meat? It's red meat?
It is red meat. I mean, it's more of like a pork, so it's kind of got that pinkish color to it.
Yeah.
But it's really good. I mean, all you got to do is check the liver, make sure there's no spots on it, and then you're good to go.
Dude, I am so fascinated by trappers.
Yeah.
Because one of the things people don't understand, because until you actually start to dissect things apart, you can just go out hunting and return. Mm-hmm. If you're going to trap, that's a commitment.
Oh, yeah.
Because you're not doing it legally or ethically if you're not constantly checking your traps.
Right.
Right?
100%.
So it's like, okay, I'm going to trap. Well, you better have a week or more.
Yeah, like last year I did 27 days straight of wolf trapping.
Yeah.
Because they're on a cycle.
Right.
It's nonstop.
Did you get one?
No.
Yeah.
They're way smarter than me. I still haven't trapped a wolf, so I got to get some of these other guys out here to mentor me a little better because I'll have wolves walk right up to where I have my trap set, and they'll like do a 90-degree turn, piss on it, and then keep walking. Yeah, insult to injury. Oh, they're genius.
So Byron South was talking to me on this episode. He was like, do you know that most coyotes are right-footed? I was like, what? He's like, yeah. He goes, more often than not, I'll set my trap up and I'll catch them. I'll catch the right paw.
Yep.
He goes, he's rule of 3, 1, 2, 3. he's like, they'll come up here, and then that third paw, that third step, I want him.
Yep.
And he goes, I always do set my trap, finger and thumb.
Yep.
Spread your finger and thumb. He goes, that distance from the scent, that distance over from the scent.
Yep.
And that's where I put, and I was like, you are blowing my mind right now.
You have to trap a lot of animals to have that kind of knowledge, like where you know it, and then you can consistently hit it
and then
until you find the left-handed coyote.
Right. He goes, sometimes. But he was talking about the wind, right? So he's like, you got to know prevailing wind.
Yep.
And I don't know if you probably know all this stuff already.
Not well. I mean, educate me too.
Okay, so this stuff that I was learning. He's like, you got to know prevailing wind. So he traps a lot of Texas. So he's like, all right, if it's always like a westerly wind, and I know that these coyotes or wolves or whatever are traveling in this direction, you have to have the scent be the opposite, because if you want them to step on this 4-inch pan out of this millions of acres, then they at least got to smell it to then get it there. So if you're putting your trap in the scent opposite of the prevailing wind, more often than not, you're not even going to get an animal. And I was like, as simple as that sounds, it blew my mind.
Yeah, the trapping rabbit hole is so deep, and I'm very thankful, and I've talked about this before, is that the trapping community, what you would think might be a little even more gruff than like the hunting community, I have had more open arms mentoring reception from the trapping community, maybe because it's smaller and people are wanting to make sure that it continues, the heritage continues, but holy crap, they've been amazing. And like opening up and offering these things, and to my wife's chagrin, ever since the book came out, I've had a lot of trappers reach out, and without fail, like every couple weeks, we'll get like a soggy, smelly box on our front door, and someone's sending me some like homemade lure of like different animal piss or
Sweet.
But it's awesome, and it's just an open arms community to teach you those things about prevailing wind, and if you have a question, it's not as protected as I've seen some in the hunting community.
Yeah,
it's very much heavy on the mentorship side. It's just there's not a lot of people getting into it, so it's almost like there's no one to mentor, which is a problem.
Right, which is also probably why they're so welcoming.
Yeah.
Right. Oh, give me fresh blood. Like, let's go. So you're 35. You've gone on this journey. You've worked in technology, which there's some real irony.
Oh yeah.
In your story.
100%.
Of living a fake life to now living the realest life that someone could truly live.
Yep. And still holding a job in artificial intelligence.
Yes. Are you, like, you ever just find yourself pausing and being like, holy crap, I can't believe I'm at this point?
Probably only daily.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, it's something when I wake up where we live with my now wife, our 2 young kids, you look up and it's snowing and you're looking at the base of the Sawtooth Mountains on the south side in a town of 35 people, and you open your door and you hear nothing.
Yeah.
Like, I'm so thankful. I feel honored. I feel blessed. And I'm just learning every day.
Yeah. You live where the night sky is actually black.
Oh, yeah. Well, until the stars are too bright, and then it's...
Right. Beautiful.
Yep.
So you're here at the expo.
Yes.
What do you find yourself encountering the most?
Well, I guess there should be a little bit of pretext here. So, speaking of technology, myself and a few other guys who are guides and outfitters, we have built a company called theoutfitter.guide, and it's essentially a back-end system for outfitters. This actually was birthed out of my first few guided hunt experiences. Funny story, my first guided elk hunt, I was looking it up online, going through like bookyourhunt.com, finally found an outfitter in Stanley, Idaho, and they're like, yep, I got a one-on-one archery available, so I could go annoy the piss out of the guy and ask 100 questions. He's like, show up in September, we'll go. Oh, but please send me half of the cost as a deposit to this P.O. box in Arizona, and I'll see you in 8 months. I'm like, well, I feel like I'm getting scammed, so I cut a check for half the price of this expensive hunt and just wait. And I had so many questions. I already wanted to ask them.
Yes.
I'd call him, and he'd be like, I'm on my combine, I can't talk, click. I'd email, and I might get an answer 6 days later. And, as an investor in this, like we talked about, this was an investment for me. I felt a little bit of lacking. So much so that when the hunt came up, I was hoping that this 10 Cliff Bars my wife packed in my bag would satiate me on this 7-day hunt because I didn't know if I was going to be fed.
Yeah, is food provided? What's going on?
What's the lodging like? Long story short, show up on the hunt, fantastic hunt. I was fed, didn't harvest an animal that first time, but I learned everything I wanted to.
Yeah.
But it got me thinking, and we started asking questions. Myself and my now partners were going around to expos asking people about their hunt experiences. Everyone was the same. Outfitters, if you're listening, there's a few in between, but customer management, not the best.
They're really good at what they do when it comes to like finding animals and putting in that work. Really bad at the business side of it.
And the business side they might nail too. I mean, you sell hunts. You have so much carrying capacity, you get someone in, that's great. But the customer management side. So we've built software that allows an outfitter to easily upload all their stuff. We'll communicate with the hunter, and then what we've built where we think the special sauce is, if you had 8 months between the time that you booked a hunt and the time you're out there, we have a little algorithm where we're going to send you emails at certain times, and then with our affiliate partners, with the folks here like Mountain Tough, we might be able to say, you as a hunter at sea level and you're about to go hunt Dall sheep at 11,000 feet, have you done your lunges? Oh, here's a discount code for Mountain Tough Fitness.
Yeah.
Next month it might be boots, a rifle, but keep them informed and give them good information along the way so this investment they're making, they can have the best chance of succeeding when it's already a low odds scenario.
Right. If you're already under 10% of something, you want to at least enjoy yourself while you're doing it.
Right.
On flying up here from Texas, actually sitting next to vice president of something for Planet Fitness, ironically.
Nice.
Big time hunter, but has never gone Western hunting. And he's like, hey, I'm actually going on my first outfitted, I think this was an elk hunt. He goes, in October in Colorado.
Nice.
Maybe November, whatever, right in there. And I'm like, sweet, man. He's like, so what type of camo do you use? What type of this do you use?
Yep.
And I was like, I will walk you through everything when you are ready to hear it. Because if I just start listing off every single piece, you better have a notepad ready. But he's your clientele.
Oh, yeah.
Of like, there's so much, where do I go? And because we don't like failing.
No one does.
Failure's a part of life.
Yep.
But sucking sucks.
It does.
Embrace the suck to a point, but if you're setting yourself up to suck, that's a whole nother story.
Yeah, there's a level of education and try that's involved. Like, you're always going to suck when you do something new.
Mm-hmm.
But if you can edge that a little bit, soften those corners.
Yeah.
Like, we have 2 kids under 2. Like, I'm all about softening corners.
Yeah.
Yeah, if you can do that, let them bump their head. As long as they don't split it open and bleed to death, we're good. A little bruise doesn't hurt.
Let me tell your perspective real quick that I had this coming year, or this last October, that you're going to get to experience very soon.
All right.
You taught yourself how to hunt.
Yes.
You taught yourself how to trap. The minute that you got to eat your first meal of meat that you provided, that is a special feeling.
It is.
That's like, oh my gosh, like look at what I've done. We're eating the food I provided. When your children provide the food that you eat, it will blow your mind.
I can't wait.
My oldest boy, he was 7 years old. We made a connection down in Texas. Shout out to Grant Gardner. He's an awesome guy. He was like, hey, it's youth weekend. Your boy want to shoot a deer? And I'm like, yes, he wants to shoot a deer. He's like, I got land. It's, we can shoot any does, and then if any bucks show up, minus a couple that this landowner's like, hey, off limits, he goes, have at it. And in my head, I'm like, dude, a deer steps out, I don't care what it, hammer it. And so my youngest boy, I've never really taken him hunting that much yet, for a couple reasons. Number one, I believe there's a maturity level. Like, not that he's not mature, but you got to want it. If you don't want it, then I'm dragging you along.
Oh, yeah.
Right? So the maturity level of like, okay, I think I'm ready to do this. But so I took him out, and the day before, I had him on my rifle on a tripod. I set out my archery deer target at like 100 yards because I was like, Grant, how far is the feeder going to be away from the stand? He's like, about 109 yards. I'm like, okay. So I get this gun, and I'm having my boy dry fire go through it. I'm like, is it on the deer? Is it on the deer?
Mm-hmm.
He shoots this spike buck. One shot, it runs off, and I'm just like, oh my gosh. But when he put that meat on the table and we got to eat
Was he
that,
proud?
I think I was more proud.
Yeah.
I think I was like, finally, mentorship is conservation.
Yep.
It is now passing on to the next generation. I'll tell you, that's something that you really get to look forward to in this evolution of your hunting.
I'm excited for that because, I didn't grow up in a hunting family. Like now I drag, my daughter on my trap line and she'll like pet the dead beaver on the way back. She's like, why is it sleeping? But, really sleepy.
Yeah.
But
good Petey bird.
Exactly, pretty much. But I'm very excited for that. And to your point about the maturity, I agree. And when I think about myself being an adult onset hunter, like I also find myself being very thankful because if I think about 17-year-old Zach, 12-year-old Zach, I was so stupid. Like the probability that I would have done something stupid or regretful with that responsibility of taking a life and maybe not taking it as seriously as I should.
Yeah.
I mean, I almost feel better that I did just because I know me. Now, that's not to say my kids are going to be in that same boat and like wrestling with how you introduce them, how you do that. I mean, for me now, it's a way of life, just like it's a way of life for you.
Yeah.
So they're going to be exposed no matter what, but figuring out that balance between pushing and, encouraging.
Yeah.
I obviously, I don't have the answer.
Snacks.
Oh, hell yeah.
A lot of snacks.
That's kind of what gets me on anything. If anyone wants to tip me over the edge,
right,
bring the snack.
Oh, man, I love it. Brother, this has been a lot of fun, and I'm honored to meet you and get a chance to sit down and talk with you. How can people find your book? How can they connect with you? Because I'm sure that a lot of people are going to hear this and be like, okay, he did it, I can do it.
Yep.
Right?
Yeah, and people have reached out. It's been fantastic. For me, I don't have social media, so I don't have an Instagram or anything. I do have a Facebook, so you can look me up there. The book's available on Amazon, so it's Turning Feral. And, if you want to email me, that's probably the best way, as dorky as that is. You can hit me at Zach, Z-A-C-H, at theoutfitter.guide. Send me questions. I mean, I'm happy to help people on their journey. I'm happy to talk with you. I'm happy to learn from you. So if you are hearing something that I said that sounds really stupid,
call me on it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Dude, there's so many times that when I've said to people, like, you got questions? I'll support you.
Yeah.
But here's my number. Use it.
Yeah.
I got a lot of people that they'll use it like maybe the first and second time, but they won't necessarily follow up. I'd love to hear where a lot of these people are nowadays.
Well, that's the great thing about this expo that you and I are sitting at. This community, like you and I connected through Facebook. If you have a question and you're asking me and I don't know it, the network effect that we have going on amongst this little community, like chances are I'm going to know somebody who knows that answer or has a better perspective on that question than I do, and I can put you over there, and vice versa.
Dude, I love it. Brother, you are a phenomenal human being.
Well, I appreciate it,
Have you ever heard of Malcolm Gladwell's 10,000 hour rule?
Yes, which I am about 9,500 hours short of, I think, on becoming a trapping hunting master.
Yeah. Dude, I totally believe in that.
Yep.
But on that way to mastery, the number one way in the education world to, you've mastered a topic when you can reteach it to other people.
Yep.
Because it holds you accountable for what you know, and it keeps you sharp. So my encouragement to you as you continue doing your journey is hone your skills more by sharing that message.
Heck yeah, brother.
Really proud of you.
All
Great
right,
job. Guys, thank you so much for listening to this episode. If you liked it, share, subscribe, give it a thumbs up. Thank you so much for tuning in to this podcast. As always, remember that hunting has the power to transform lives through primal adventure, and mentorship is conservation. Be blessed, everybody. Freedom on, and stay soulful. If you enjoyed today's podcast and want to support the show, you can always like, share, subscribe, and leave a rating as it helps us share our mission of mentorship is conservation. Thank you so much for tuning in and being a part of Soul Seekers Nation as we transform lives through primal adventure. If you want to get more connected with the podcast, check out the Soul Seekers Nation Facebook group. As I look forward to connecting with you on the next episode, So stay tuned and stay soulful.